Tocando sua xereca, cadu, 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 cadu.
Outdoor Barliners with Dumphawk. Right, so we have some decking and engine, some decking stain here. It's actually decking oil, and I use natural teak. And the two cable reels here are from an electrical wholesaler. So these things are free from these guys, and you can normally get them from Stewart's Electrical or J.A. Russell, and they often throw them away. These ones are pretty old, so the outcome will be a bit different, and if you went out and try to get your hands on a few now, they'll probably be in much better condition. So yep, I'm using a thin roller here. The stuff's pretty thin to apply, and I just gave it a single coat at the moment and then let it dry overnight before I went ahead and put the grass and stuff on top. So yeah, I'm obviously doing this pretty quick, try and keep up. It's time to get our grass on top of the barrel reel here, and some terrible lip syncing. Right, so I used a 1 meter by 1 meter piece of artificial grass with a nicer texture on it than the other version you can get, which looks like tinsel off a Christmas tree. So this one looks quite natural, even has like dead spots and stuff in it, which is quite cool. So I bought these as two 1 meter by 1 meter pieces, but you can buy it from Mitre 10 as 2 meters wide and 1 meter long. So one of those will do 2 units, or you can just buy one of these for 25 bucks each. So I'm going to use a white pencil here to mark underneath the barrel reel, so a circle around it. So if you can't find a white pencil, just maybe try and find something that will show up on the black backing. Can be a bit tricky. I'd already marked this one, so it's all good. And we are going to mark that all up, and we're going to go cut it out with some nice sharp scissors and glue it on. Right, I'm probably talking about some glue here. I just used some Sikaflex building material, some sort of, like liquid nails sort of equivalent, just to hold down the carpet. And I also used some staples with my pneumatic gun, but if you don't have a pneumatic gun, you can just use a standard stapler, or you don't even really need to use a stapler. I just wanted to keep the edges down easily, so I got my grass lined up nicely in there, and then I put something heavy on one half of it like that, and I'll turn it over, put glue down so it holds it in place, and then I'll pat it down and then do the same for the other side. So pretty straightforward. Yeah, I think you can, if it's not perfectly trimmed when you cut it out with the scissors, you can just give it a trim up once it's on there, especially if it's stapled closer to the edges. It's a lot easier to tidy it up afterwards. Right, so we'll pop this on and then move on to the next stage. We're almost there. I don't normally wear ridiculous gloves like this either, but it was actually very cold in the normally sunny Hawke's Bay, so sorry about that. So I have this wire you see coming up through the top there. That's for a LED Buddha that I have sitting on top of that particular table, that Barlina. So that's just what feeds the power to it, and it links to the other LEDs that are underneath and gives it a nice effect at night. So obviously I'm just using my ear stapler now and going around and popping some staples in there. Wow, that was fast, wasn't it? Right, so now I'm just going to wire up my Buddha. Um, you see the two wires there, and I'm just going to solder those back onto the LED connector, which is inside, and put some heat shrink tubing on there, and that'll be up and running. So you'll see a nice blue light coming from there in a minute. Pretty basic wiring. If you don't have a soldering iron, you could still do this project with the LEDs using terminal blocks, or chocolate blocks they call them, just a little screw terminal that you screw the cables into. So very, very limited electrical knowledge required for this. Pretty straightforward stuff. Right, so here we have our LEDs that I've chosen. These are IP65 rated waterproof LED set from AliExpress. I will link a price and possibly a direct link to buy them. They're relatively cheap. I think really only about sort of $5, $10 maybe tops. They run on 12 volts and yeah, perfect for outside. So I am going to solder up my cable that's going to go to my power supply, which is will be a 12 volt, somewhere around 2 amps is perfect. So chances are you've got one of those sitting around at home from an old modem or a device you don't need anymore in the junk drawer, in the cable drawer. So otherwise they're easily accessible on AliExpress too, with New Zealand plugs on them, so that's no problem. And so I'm just using some network type, some alarm style cable there, just so I can get the length that I need from the Barlina back to my power supply, which is in the little garden shed outside. So yeah, so I'm going to solder this stuff up. Obviously there's only two wires needed, and it's positive and negative, so you need to get those right. So that's why you saw me testing it earlier. And yeah, I'm going to solder this, put some heat shrink on it, and these are the LEDs that will be going under the table. So they come in a wide variety of colors too. You can get them in different shades of white, warm white or bright white, and also red, green, blue, and even color changing ones and multiple RGB ones and stuff. So really depending what you're going for. I just want some subtle light and under the table, so this is perfect for the job. And yeah, it's a cheap and nice way to make it give your barbecue area or your outside entertaining area a bit more zing. So I'll just fast forward through this and we'll get on to installing them. So If you don't have your soldering iron here, this is where you use a terminal block and just screw the wires into each one, positive and negative, and then join them and screw them back together. Then you can probably pop a screw in that terminal block underneath the cable reel to just to hide it or to keep it secure once it's installed. Cool. Right, here are the LEDs that I used on it. Really pretty cheap. They're actually only $3.85 a lot. So jump on AliExpress and just type in LED module 5050 and you'll see. Alright, so we have our cable reel here and it's upside down, so the grass is on the ground here. Obviously it's been glued and secured in, and I'm pointing to the grass. So what we want to do is we spread out our LEDs around the perimeter of the cable reel, and I just put them centrally, basically in the middle. And they come with 3M double-sided tape, so that's not really going to hold by itself on wood, especially if it's raining. So I use the double-sided tape just to get them in place, and then I put a screw in each one just to make sure they're going to hold down. So this is really the last step, and then we're just going to hide our cables through the cable reel, and then thread it through the bottom and then out to our power supply. So you'll see me popping some screws in there in a minute, and then I'll work my way around and we'll be tidying it up and putting it back together. So here we have it. All our LEDs are installed, and our cable is going to go quite close to the top there if we can, so you don't really see it you know, when you're walking past it. So often there's quite a few holes in these cable reels, so and they're big enough to get your cable through there. So I'll just pop it through, thread it through the bottom, and then I'll feed it through the middle of the lower smaller cable reel, and then we will pop it at the bottom, and then depending on what sort of setup you've got, you can thread it through under a deck, or in my case I've yet to use the actual concrete cut pieces where the sections that are actually cut into the concrete. I've just scooped them out with a screwdriver and stuffed my cable down there, and that's hidden it quite well. So very good. I'm going to pop it back together and we'll plug it in, and project done. Quite a simple one. Really only about probably an hour's worth of work, maybe a little more and less if you don't want to do the LEDs. So really it's just a quick stain of the reels and putting the grass on. So yeah, it's a cool little project, and I think they look pretty neat, and they do give off a nice sort of mellow effect at night. Alrighty, let's move on. Right, as I put these back together at supersonic speed, it's probably worth noting that if you wanted to put two sets of LEDs in, one set for the top and one set for the bottom cable reel, you may need a slightly bigger power supply, so you'll still need 12 volts and they'll be in parallel, but you may need more than 2 amps. So you can always check to see how much power they're going to consume. There's always information when you're buying it. So here's the finished result, and obviously it's been affected a little bit by the blue LEDs I have in other places out in my barbecue area, but it does give off a nice little effect. So it's time to sit back and have a beer and say cheers. Another project well done. Thanks for watching, guys.
Tocando sua xereca, cadu, 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 cadu.